Good morning, students. Welcome to my class. Students, today we are gonna learn a new topic in English grammar, which is verb. We have already discussed a bit about verb while we were discussing parts of a speech. We will learn today in detail about verb, the meaning we have already discussed while discussing the parts of the speech. We will learn today the different classification of verbs, their uses and importance. I hope all of you remember the concept, the meaning of verb. If you don't, let me revise it quickly. A verb describes action, state of being, or possession. Action, all of you understand any work. State of being means the present state or past state or the future state of any person or any object. And the possession stands for ownership. So, a verb describes any of these three things, whether action, state, or possession. We may further understand it through these examples. As you can see, the first example says they help each other. Here the highlighted word is help, which is a verb, and it describes any action. When we help somebody or someone, we do something, and that is action. In the next example, she is a nurse. Here is the highlighted verb, which is a verb, and it describes the state of a person who is a nurse. Third example says, I have a new mobile. Here highlighted word is have, which is a verb, and it denotes possession or ownership of something, which is a mobile. The last example is the mangoes were rotten. Here were is the verb which describes the state of the mangoes. I hope you may have been reminded about the concept and the meaning of verb and is clear to you now, and I hope it will help you study further about the verbs. Before we proceed further, I would like you to think of more examples describing action, possession, or state of being. Alright, so let's move further now. Coming to classification of verbs, we have different ways of classifying verbs. I have listed here three ways, three bases of classification, how we can classify verbs in different ways. The first way says, according to use, it says that we can use a verb in two ways, which are transitive and intransitive. We will discuss in detail what transitive and intransitive mean. We will discuss it later. This is just a highlight about the classification of verbs. So the first classification says a verb may be categorized or classified on the basis of use in transitive and intransitive verb. Transitive and intransitive verbs. The second classification says that is according to meaning, a verb may describe or may be used for meaning or without meaning, and that are helping verb and main verb. We will also discuss it later in a separate video, what helping verb means and what main verb exactly means. The third one is according to form. A verb sometimes changes form, sometimes don't change its forms at all. So we categorize or classify a verb according to according to their forms as finite and non-finite verbs. I hope the classification of verbs is clear to you all. Transitive and intransitive as per the use, helping and main verb as per meaning, and finite and non-finite verb as per their forms. Let us now try to understand each of them in detail. Students, let's start with the first classification, which is on the basis of uses of the verbs. In how many ways we use a verb? I have already discussed we use the verbs in two ways, which are transitive and intransitive verbs. Now, what transitive verbs exactly stand for? What transitive verb means? Well, a transitive verb is a verb which passes the action or transfer the action to something or over an object. Or in other words, we may understand it, a transitive verb has an object to receive the action. In that case, a transitive verb is always a verb denoting an action. The verbs denoting possession and state of being are always intransitive verbs. Transitive verbs are always the verbs which describe any action. Alright, so let's try to understand through an example. She gave me a nice present. Here you can see the verb is gave, which is an action. She gave me a nice present. Here gave is the action, and the action is passing over. The action is transferring over to an object, which is a nice present, as well as me. Or in other words, you can understand a nice present or me is receiving the action. You may also identify in a different way. Whenever you need to identify whether the verb is transitive or intransitive, the first thing to notice is whether it is an action verb or state of being or possession. If it is an action verb, there may be a chances of it to be transitive. Then you may ask a question with the verb with who or what. Like she gave what or she gave whom. So you are getting the answer here. She gave to me. So here me is the receiver. Again, she gave what? A nice present. Again, a nice present is the receiver. So both are the object here. I hope it's clear now. In the next sentence, Pius hit the ball hard. Again, you can see the action hitting is being performed over something, and that is the ball. So here again the action is transferring over the ball. So that is the receiver and that is the object. Again you can use that technique. Pius hit what and Pius hit whom. You don't get the answer of whom, but you get the answer of what. Pius hit what? Pius hit the ball. So the ball is your object. Now there is further classification of object. When an object represents a person, it is called indirect object. In the first example you can see she gave me a nice present. Me and a nice present both are objects, and me represents any person, so that is indirect object. But a nice present denotes a thing or object, that is why it is called direct object. Similarly, in the second sentence, Pius hit the ball. The ball is your object and it denotes an object or a non-living thing or a thing. That is why it is an indirect object. I hope it's clear now. Now let us move to intransitive verb. Intransitive verbs are the verbs which do not take any object. They are without object. They may have other words, but they don't have any object. They are usually the verbs of the verbs denoting a state of being, possession. They may be action verbs also. Let us try to understand through the example. The first example is you wake up in the morning. Here you can see the action is wake up. The verb is wake up, which denotes an action, but here you don't get any receiver. Who wakes? You cannot find the answer of wake up what, or you don't find any receiver of the action. That is why it is an intransitive verb. Again, in the next sentence you can see they study. Here you see that study is the verb, which is an action verb, but there is no word ahead. The sentence completes here only. So this is also an intransitive verb. There may be different examples of intransitive verb, such as she is a girl. Here the verb is. I have already taught you that a verb which denotes possession and state of being are always intransitive verb. So is a verb, is denotes a state of being, and that's why it is an intransitive verb. They have many friends. Here the verb is have. Again, have describes possession. So it is always an intransitive verb. But the action verb may be transitive as well as intransitive. So you need to keep in your mind, when the verb keeps an object, it is a transitive verb. When it does not keep an object, it is an intransitive verb. I hope this is clear to you about the concept of verb and the transitive and intransitive verb. Let us finish this video here. But before we finish this video, I have I have given some self-assessment exercise in the next slide, next two slides, which is on the identification of verbs denoting action, possession, or state, and identifying transitive and intransitive verb, and if transitive, whether they have direct or indirect object. I hope you will be able to do these two exercises to assess yourself, assess your learning. All right, so please don't forget to do this exercise. This is all about today. Thank you.